When the odds against you are incalculable, when it seems like there is no hope and all is lost, never fear. The Black Panther lives. That's right. We are going to discuss one of the most anticipated superhero films, possibly in an entire generation. My name is Lord Deathman, and you are listening to the Review of Champions. And today we are going to discuss Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Before we get into that discussion, though, we have had 5 years between this sequel and the groundbreaking phenomena that came out in 2018, the first Black Panther film. That film made next to $1.3 billion worldwide. And now we are finally seeing its sequel 5 years later. But the world has changed, and not just for the character of the Black Panther, but for us as fans. We experienced the tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman, the lead in this particular film, which stirred up a lot of controversy and division in the fandom about how to proceed with this movie. Now that it has been out for 1 week, Black Panther Wakanda Forever has crossed the $400 million mark in terms of earnings, and by early next week is expected to have $500 million in the bank with only 1 week in release. So we see that there is interest in this film. We see that there are a lot of opinions, a lot of speculation about this film. Now we are going to talk about it in the most open, transparent way that we can. All of the issues about this film are going to be on the table, including the review from our powerful panel, whom I'll introduce in just a moment. But ladies and gentlemen, please do keep it locked in, because this is the one that you've been waiting for. The double-sized issue of the Review of Champions, where we're going to take a look at Wakanda Forever. Be careful for spoilers. We will be discussing spoilers for Black Panther in 2018 and this film, Wakanda Forever. Also, I am obliged to do our social media plugs in terms of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Catch us on all of that kind of stuff. Also, if you want to join the conversation, there's sakar.freeforums.net. And last but not least, I am going to jump into introductions for the panel and immediately dive into the discussion. We do 3 rounds of discussions here. We're going to do quick impressions, we're going to do a deep dive, and then we're also going to give this film, we're going to attempt to give this film a rating. Starting with the Grandmaster, the master of ceremonies. How are you feeling today? Are you ready to discuss Wakanda Forever?
Hello, I'm doing great, and yes, I am. I saw it yesterday, a week later than I usually do, yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. And Merv, how are you feeling today? You ready to talk about this much anticipated superhero film?
Fantastic, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Outstanding. How are you doing today, Taylor? You ready to go?
Doing great. Ready to talk about the latest MCU movie.
Indeed. And it's always a treat to get an MCU movie. It's kind of like pizza, right? Even cold pizza's okay, right? This you can get by. But this one I think was a hot and fresh slice, if I do say so myself. But I am going to start off with Taylor, getting your quick impressions about the film. Did you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? Do you think it met the expectations after a 5-year wait for such a highly venerated first entry and installment in the franchise?
Well, I thought it was great. The performances, especially, were a highlight of the movie. They were really excellent, all of them. As far as expectation, I mean, it met my expectations for a quality MCU movie, which are generally pretty high, because I haven't had an MCU movie I didn't like yet. So this one met those expectations. there were some things about this movie I didn't like, but they were all small, and we'll talk about those when we go deep dive. But overall, beautifully filmed, again, beautifully acted. The introduction of Namor and his culture was very well done, and I thought the character of Namor was great. And then, of course, all the characters from the previous movie, seeing where they are now, and the way they handled, the death of T'Challa, which is not, no one asks me, but it's not. I would have recast the role. Let's just get that out of the way. I would have just recast T'Challa.
Team
That would have
recap.
been my go-to, but they didn't do it that way. They did it their way, and overall, I think they did a really good job with it.
Well, since they decided not to recast Taylor, did you feel like anything was missing from this movie because you didn't have T'Challa there as a character?
No, I don't. I really don't think so. I mean, obviously, the Black Panther was missing for the first 3/4 of the movie or whatever, but that was the story. That was the story they were telling. So it's not like it was a problem.
Indeed. We're going to circle back to you, Taylor. Thanks for those remarks. We're going to do a deep dive with you and get a little bit more into your opinion about the film. But for now, I just want to see where everyone is in their top line review of the film. Merv, can you tell us a little bit about what you thought of Wakanda Forever?
Yeah, I thought that I don't know if any other MCU movie has focused and been able to tap into grief and loss to this degree. Obviously, you're dealing with real world situations that kind of you can allow your art to imitate life a bit there. But I thought that aspect of it was really excellent and very unique to this movie, more so than a lot of other things. I came into it not expecting to really care about Shuri as a lead. And about a quarter of the way through, I realized that I was really invested into her emotional arc and her character in this story and the way it was progressing. And that kind of surprised me, so I have to, take my hat off to the filmmakers and the actress for that, just for taking a character who was like, kind of quirky, side, like the brainy sidekick to, T'Challa and making me someone who didn't really like her all that much care about her to this degree, to the point where I was more curious about her emotional ending to this than anything to do with any of the superhero stuff in it. So, hats off to that. It was just a really somber is not the right word, but it was interesting to see how everyone reacts to this. I mean, essentially your main character's dead, and now you're seeing how all the side characters are developing beyond that, and it's like it's an aspect of storytelling that probably is hardly ever touched upon, and obviously other characters move into the main character role, but I just thought that added a really interesting perspective to see all, like, we pretty much touched on everyone that I can think of, aside from maybe Okoye's husband, that, to see where they are in Wakanda. And I just thought that was a really interesting perspective and something different. I love the Talakans. I wish we got a little bit more development from some of them, but we can get into that later. Namor was fine. He was fine for who he was. And overall, it was a well-polished, enjoyable, whatever, 2 to 3 hour, movie. And I really liked, like I said, I just really liked the emotional center of it all.
Yeah. I think Ryan Coogler's humanist take on superhero genre work really was a great marriage for the story he wanted to tell. And I want to find out, before we move on from you, Merv, where did you fall? Did you feel like the presence of T'Challa was missing from this film, or do you feel like this film stands on its own as an installment in the franchise?
I think the presence of T'Challa was missing, but I think that was kind of the point of it, if that makes sense. I feel like the focus was on the fact that he was missing for at least a large portion of this film. It was, in how Wakanda, especially, and the rest of the world is dealing with this tragedy of the death of a king, essentially. And it wasn't missing for me as the viewer, but I do think like part of the plot was that, like they wanted you to feel like he was missing, like their centerpiece of their world is gone now. You know what I mean?
Would you have recast?
I was actually on the opposite fence. I was against a recast mildly. I didn't care, like, I just wanted a good movie, or a good whatever. But I wasn't really for a recast. I just think it became very, very quick that Chadwick Boseman was synonymous with that T'Challa's Black Panther. And I kind of, not to get too far into it, but I kind of like the way that this one leaves off, where you can still have a T'Challa Black Panther in the future. It just might not be Chadwick Boseman's version, and that'll be fine with me.
Right. I think that that takes the character to a new level, surprisingly. When the Black Panther truly becomes a mantle, it is easier for people to project themselves into the identity of the character. The way Marvel characters tend to work, you're supposed to be relating to them in a way that you might not be able to with DC characters, which you're kind of held at arm's length. These are super powerful gods. You're not supposed to, think of yourself as Superman, but you root for him. Whereas with someone like Spider-Man, you might be more close to relating to that character, as if you've ever missed your rent, or fallen short on a bill, or had troubles with a woman, that kind of thing. So I hate to fall into the tropes of the two different companies in terms of how they handle characters, but I do think that making the Black Panther more about a mantle and a person does take it to a different place that you can open up in terms of storytelling. Before I get to the Grandmaster and his impressions about this film, there's a couple of words I'd like to share with the audience about the various lenses we've been looking through in terms of how we've been thinking about recast T'Challa. Now, there's a creative lens, there's a business lens, storytelling. There are many different perspectives you can look at this issue from. But one of the perspectives that we don't often engage in terms of the discourse, is a cultural lens. For Western cultures, in terms of the way we make movies in the West, and how that business works, it is standard operating procedure for you to just recast. If someone falls out of a role, if they can't do it anymore, you get in the new Darren Stevens, and everyone just lives with it, right? Because there's a strict separation from grieving over a friend, and the idea that there's a business that has to keep moving, and that there's a character that people want to consume and see, regardless of who's playing the part. Black Panther, as its own universe or sub franchise within the MCU, is about indigenous peoples. It's about peoples of color. It's about Mesoamerican peoples, peoples of African cultures, and their non Western view of handling how to deal with the loss of a creative partner may not fit neatly into how we treat this from the Western perspective. I'm not saying that this is right or that it's wrong, or it's just another nugget to put out there in terms of another perspective on why recasting might have made sense to the people involved in the production of Wakanda Forever. Um, I'd love to get some thoughts from the panel as we're going around in terms of that particular perspective, if you have one. And yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I feel that Ryan Coogler was also trying to play to his strengths as a storyteller, which is telling an emotional story, which is incorporating grief, which is in being more humanist in terms of how he handles the genre. He almost had an opportunity in front of him that he just couldn't pass up in terms of making a stronger movie. But with that said, I do want to move on to the Grandmaster to get your impressions of Wakanda Forever. Tell us in a few words, what did you think of this film? Did it meet your expectations? Did you feel that the absence of Chadwick Boseman hurt this film? Did it help this film? Or are you neutral?
Um, let us get out of the way. I was a strong supporter of the recast T'Challa movement. I will not deny that, and I still think they should have done that. That being said, when I watched this movie, I went in with no expectations at all. I saw the trailers; they look great. But my fear was I'm gonna sit there and think, how could this movie have been if Chadwick was still among us and wasn't? During the movie, I never had that thought because despite Chadwick unfortunate passing, he was still very much in this movie. His spirit, his presence was felt during almost every frame, and not in a way where you say, "Oh my God, I wish he was still alive." No more like, how great is it that they celebrate him, his legacy, and what he did. And I think I also said before this movie, I trust Marvel Studios to do it right, and they did it right, in my opinion. And I really, really, really enjoyed Black Panther: Wakanda Forever for what it was. And if you're not going to recast, this is the story you needed to tell. And so, what I found was very strong, and before I get into a deep dive, I will do that later, was actually the opening. They right away addressed the elephant in the room, and they didn't make up some story of an off-screen battle or anything. No, he was ill, and they couldn't cure him. Like what? That's basically what happened to the man himself. And I thought that was so well done because you immediately cut off any speculation. This is it. This is what happened. He's not coming back. He's dead. Done. Yeah, I think Ryan Coogler and the cast and the crew and the producers at Marvel Studios did the impossible. They created a story that everybody can live with, which honors Chadwick Boseman in a way, which was amazing, and it was from the first moment till the last moment of the movie. And yeah, I think they did an excellent job, and you can only applaud them. This was the hardest movie they ever had to make, and well, they knocked it out of the park. And if you, I'm not going to say this is my favorite movie of Phase 4 because it isn't, but it is really high up on my list on MCU movies as well, just judged on merit. Ryan Coogler, well, I don't think he should get an Oscar for this movie, but he should get an Oscar for his achievement, what he did with this movie. And it was a very hard movie to pull off, and he pulled it off completely. That's all I'm going to say in my short thoughts.
Indeed. And you pack a punch there in your quick impressions of this movie. I have always been neutral on the idea of recasting. I trusted Ryan Coogler as a creative to tell a story either way. I do love the character of T'Challa, and in my mind, he will never die. Just because he's passed on in this particular continuity, I was never sort of fearful that that would marginalize the character in all media forever. T'Challa will return, and I just have absolutely no doubt of that. So it was a little easier for me to sort of be neutral about the whole thing. But I will point out that what you mentioned, Grandmaster, about the off-screen death, and this is an off-screen death. This is like No Country for Old Men. The guy dies off screen, and he dies of cancer, which lends itself to the idea that Marvel is the world outside of your window. You know, it's rare for you to find characters from other comic book companies that die of cancer or some type of a mysterious illness. But there's a precedence for this in the comic books with Marvel. In 1982, we got a graphic novel called The Death of Captain Marvel, where this ultra powerful cosmic character was felled by nothing else other than cancer. as a disease that took this character away from us. So, with that being said, we've gotten quick impressions out of the way. I hope the listeners at home are engaged with the discussion. Stick with us because we're about to go deeper in terms of our criticism and analysis of the film. I want to start off with you, Taylor. There are a lot of balls in the air with this film. We've got Talocan, we've got Namor, we've got Riri Williams, we've got an introduction to Ironheart, we've got the evolution of the characters that we've been seeing since the first movie, getting back to Okoye, Nakia. There's no shortage of characters that Ryan Coogler has to deal with. Plus, he has to satisfy the commercial demands of the genre. He has to set things up. He has to move the whole story of the franchise forward, as well as telling his own story. I'd like you to give me your deep dive analysis of the film. Where do you think Coogler was successful in this sequel, doing all of those things and meeting those objectives? And where do you think he might have fallen short in some areas?
Well, this is definitely an ambitious movie, and it's a very big movie and complex for all the reasons that you said. And I think overall, in telling this story, he was extremely successful. I think he did a great job of telling this story. And to go back to the opening scene with T'Challa's death, that opening scene made this Shuri's story. We were looking at her when he died, not him, not the hospital room, not the doctors, not even his mother. We were looking at her and what she was doing and her reaction to his death. So I thought they did a really good job of that. That immediately made this her story. What's going to happen to her afterwards? So again, overall, with the storytelling and the performances and the special effects, all of that stuff was really great and really well done. I loved the Namor. I love that they decided to lean into the Mesoamerican culture as the background for his country or his people, his society, and they gave us a very quick, very succinct, not drawn out, not ridiculous background flashback to set up where he comes from and where his people come from and how they ended up underwater. So I thought that was well executed too. It could have really gotten bloated if they'd gotten out of control. Now, that just to cut back and forth, at that moment, that particular, since I'm talking about his background at this point, one problem I have, and this isn't a problem with this movie per se, but it's actually a problem with Marvel. What do they have against the names from the comic books? His name is Namor. Why? Because his mother named him Namor. Okay. He's not Niamor or Namor, Ninama, blah. My people call me this, my enemies call me that. No, his name's Namor. And they've done this before in the MCU. And I don't know why. His name's been Namor since the 1940s. It's Namor. It's not that hard. Okay?
Right.
That's just a little thing that bugs me sometimes.
I felt that with you, Taylor. And I have to say it kind of stung when I heard, because I've been laughing at all these reviewers on YouTube who mispronounce the name, and I'm like, man, you're such a noob, right? Like you don't know this stuff. And then their mispronunciation becomes like the canonical way to say the character's name in the movies now, and I'm like, I've got some egg on my face.
He's Namor because a priest said he's without love. What? Huh? All right, that again, very small complaint. And most of my complaints about this movie are very small. As I said, overall, this is a great movie. I really, really loved that they brought in the mythology of the mermaid siren song hypnotizing sailors and stuff. I thought that was beautiful touch, and it was really helped the story. Okay, otherwise it would have been a freaking bloodbath on that ship that they attacked. But they did the siren song and everybody jumped in the water, except for the two people who got their earplugs in. Well, and the woman in that was played by Lake Bell.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if she's dead or not, because I guess the helicopter crashed, which usually means she's dead. But I thought that's pretty strange because she's a pretty well-known actress and a pretty well-liked actress in the genre circles. She does a lot of voice acting and other things. So I'm kind of surprised if her character's dead already. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up coming back somehow. And
Yeah.
and you know how they left it? They kind of left it that the outside world still doesn't really know about Talokan. You know, they have some suspicions. We think there's another player on the board. We think there's another culture. We thought it was the Wakandans. We're not sure. But no, they don't have any real facts at the end of this movie. Not even Ross. Ross knows a little bit more than most, but he didn't tell anybody. So I think they're setting up for more discovery coming on. But if she's alive, she has some information about these people that she could pass on. So again, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but I loved that the action. Now the action scenes, they were good.
Okay.
But I don't think they were highest level quality MCU action scenes. I'll give you one example. The first scene when the mercenaries are attacking the Wakandan facility and the Dora Milaje come out. They're shooting at him with a machine gun, and the Dora Milaje are blocking bullets with their spears. Come on. I mean, you could have choreographed it so that something that is absolutely absurd as that was happening. You could have choreographed it better, where they dodged it, they knocked the weapons out quickly, or something. Besides, they're moving at freaking 3 times the speed of sound and blocking bullets with their spears. And I think on the bridge, I think the Talokans did the same thing. They blocked bullets with their spears. So again, the action scenes were good. Now the 2 big battle scenes, the attack on Wakanda and then the attack at the battle out in the ocean, the final one. Again, those were good. They both felt a little bit small to me relative to the situation. However, I understand that every movie has its limitations. Okay, this movie spent, I think, $250 million. There's only so much you can do. There's only so many extras you can have. There's only so much special effects in the budget. But so overall, I think they were well executed within the limitations that they obviously had. It's not going to be Lord of the Rings Battle of whatever with millions of troops marching into each other. They just couldn't do that in this particular movie. But again, I think some of the actual fighting, again, it was good. It was action. It was good. It was exciting. I just think it wasn't the highest level that we've seen before in the MCU. The
way about the Namor Black Panther fight at the end of the film.
Again, I thought it was good. I didn't think it was the best one-on-one fight we've ever seen in the MCU, but I thought it was good. Now, one of the problems I've had, in fact, I've always had a couple of problems, even from the first movie, is the Black Panther suit. The way they described it and the way they depicted it in the first movie, I think they kind of overpowered him. Because it's vibranium, nothing other than other vibranium can penetrate it. When bullets hit him, he just absorbs their energy and then he's able to release it back out. I mean, he's freaking invincible. You can hit him with anything you want. You can throw him across the room into a mountain, whatever. The energy just, absorbs or gets bounced off. So I think that, and this is a problem across the board with comic book genre, movies, TV, comic books themselves. They're always walking that fine line of overpowering their characters or underpowering their characters, or, they've set this standard of a power, but for this scene, this story, we need him to be just a little bit weaker to make it exciting. Why didn't he use that power he used the last time? So that's a very tough, fine line. So in that final battle, Shuri, of course, got stabbed with a vibranium spear. So, of course, that can penetrate, and she got injured. She really kind of shook off that injury pretty quickly there. That one was a bit much. I do like that they had captured Namor, and they put him under the heaters, and he was obviously weakened, and he was getting weaker as the battle was going on. Maybe he should have gone a little into the water, which was right there, a little bit sooner. But okay, that's a nitpick. And of course, he was final defeated by the engine blast or something that she set off remotely. So that was all good. And again, I actually like Shuri. I mean, I always liked Shuri. I like Shuri from the first movie and all the other times we've seen her. I see a lot of people online saying, Okoye should have been the Black Panther, M'Baku should have been the Black Panther, Nakia should have been the Black Panther. And Shuri's not not a warrior. Actually, Shuri is a warrior. Okay, I reject that completely. We've seen her fight every time we've seen her. She fought in the first Black Panther in the Wakandan Civil War. She fought in Infinity War. She fought in Endgame. So
Yeah.
she's a warrior. All right. So I don't have any problem with that. She may not have the same level of skill as T'Challa, but I reject that. And because she, there's the whole royal bloodline and the rules of this and that and the risk you're taking by taking the thing, and she didn't want anyone else to take the risk. So I'm fine with Shuri ending up as the Black Panther. And I think she did a great job. I think the actress did a great job. And even in the final battle scene, the final fight scene was good. So again, all that was good. Let me think. Now, the side characters, Ross and Valentina. Val, yeah, Contessa, blah, 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 her, who's now head of the CIA, which is getting me to another issue. They're really kind of setting up the rest of the world as the bad guys here. I mean, heck, they threw France under the bus in this movie. What the heck they got against France? But
well,
France,
those French.
France and the United States and all the other countries are.
They're not wrong. I have been to France. They're not wrong.
Okay,
we lost
but I kind of didn't like. Yeah, I kind of didn't like that they're kind of setting up the rest of the world, the U.S. and France, and I guess all the other Western countries as the bad guys, And that felt a little bit. And I also didn't like, abusing those cops the way they did. I thought that scene was kind of taken too lightly. And then they could say, well, you didn't see any of the cops get killed. Well, there was a pretty darn big explosion on that bridge right next to those cop cars.
All of those.
And when a car flips 3, 4, 5, 6 times, there's going to be some serious injuries inside that cop car. So I thought that was a little bit much. But again, the side characters, starting with Ross and Val. Now, the MCU always sets up other projects within a movie. They do that all the time. And that's fine. This is a shared universe. It's how it works. This particular one just didn't feel quite as organic as they usually do it. It felt shoved in and forced in. It felt like, afterthoughts that, hey, let's cut in a scene here of them together. And, oh, hey, they used to be married. And okay, fine. Like I said, small nitpick. It didn't feel as well executed as they usually do it. Riri Williams. I like the actress. Her performance also was fine. Again, felt a little bit forced. I understand she was kind of the MacGuffin. She was the one who had the knowledge of the vibranium detector, which you think she would have given that to somebody else by now. I mean, they have the government has the machine that they're using for. You think they'd have the secret to how to build one by now, but okay, comic book, I get it. Ironheart. Oh my God. Okay. Power Ranger. Did that suit look like a freaking Power Ranger, or was it just me? I thought her suit in the final scene was awful.
Well, before you get into that, Taylor, was it, because for me, I had problems with the suit as well, but was it the helmet or was it the entire suit? Because I just think that the helmet was really atrocious on that design.
Yeah, I think it was mostly the helmet. Like I said, when they first showed the close-up of her, I'm like, Pink Power Ranger, what the heck? So I didn't care for that. And then, of course, it gets into the whole, and again, this is a nitpick, and it's kind of, again, across the board trap of the genre. Those, what are they called? Midnight Angels.
The Midnight Angels. Yeah.
You think, Wakanda's been around for centuries using vibranium for centuries. You think they would have come up with those suits a long freaking time ago and given them to all of the Dora Milaje by now. But okay, and then it gets into the whole, well, everyone's wearing an Iron Man suit, and even they had the little heads-up display like Tony Stark. I'm like, okay, that's Iron Man's thing. Can we not give it to other people so easily? Again, these are all little nitpicks. But again, Riri Williams, okay, they're setting her up for her show. Hopefully we'll get a good story from that. Again, Namor was fabulous. I really liked his character. I really liked the actor. I liked how they portrayed him and his powers. His two lieutenants, his two underlings, I don't even know what their names were. Did they have names?
They did. Namora and Atuma.
Yeah, they really didn't give us anything with them. They were just there to be the person that Okoye fights one-on-one, and the person that jumps on Riri Williams' rocket back. I really wish they had given us just a little bit more of conversation between him and them, a little more, back and forth, two-way conversation. So we got a little bit more sense of who they are and where they're at. Again, that's a small thing. I liked that, Shuri gets captured with Riri, and they go down to the underwater city, and I like the way the city was portrayed. I see a lot of people online saying that a lot of the scenes in this movie were too dark. I didn't have that problem in my theater. I could see quite well. I didn't have any problems with that, and I thought the city looked good. I thought it was it's underwater, so it's not going to be like broad daylight. But I thought it was a very unusual design of the place where they lived there, the Telecon. But I liked it. And the way that was executed, I like that we brought in Nakia, and she ended up rescuing Riri and Shuri. So anyway, those are my big thoughts. Those are my,
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the
big
spot,
thoughts
though,
are
Taylor.
Fabulous movie. Overall, great movie, extremely enjoyable. Little thoughts are, I can nitpick a couple things I don't like. Some of it's just personal preference. Some of it I think is a little bit weak in the writing department or the execution department. But none of it takes away from the fact that this is really a great movie.
I feel like I could almost pick out the moments where an executive or a producer was standing over Ryan's shoulder and they're like, okay, we got to get that in there, buddy. Figure it out. But that being said, I'm going to put you on the spot, Taylor. Namor and Talokan or Aquaman and Atlantis?
Aquaman rules because he has an octopus that plays the drums.
Fair enough.
No. I love that. See, an Aquaman, at least Aquaman, I don't know if everyone in Atlantis can do it, but Aquaman controls the actions of sea life. He can make them do stuff. A lot of people make jokes that he talks to. He doesn't have they don't talk back to him. He doesn't have conversations with fish. He controls what they do. All right, and I'm okay with that. And I love the movie Aquaman. I really do. It's so much fun and so comic book, I love the way they use the whales in this movie. Yeah. Because again, it's just that slightly more grounded thing, because whales are smart enough to train them. We've all gone to SeaWorld and seen them do stuff. Well, if you live underwater and you're freaking born and raised with them, imagine what you can train them to do. And that's what this movie did. So I think both of them are great.
Okay. Thank you so much for that incredible deep dive into Wakanda Forever, Taylor. Now I'm going to go to, I have a hard choice to make, Grandmaster or Merv. It's always difficult. I'm going to go with the beard. But before I do that, Merv, Grandmaster, you were holding a thought for quite a while Taylor was talking about it. Did you want to do a quick follow-up on that?
Yeah, it was about this remark about the Dora Milaje blocking bullets with their spears. I'm pretty sure they have uniforms made of vibranium that are not penetrable by bullets. So it was a little bit more than spears they used. So, but overall, I agree with his criticism that it was a little bit too much.
Some credibility. It's Disney logic where you never get shot in the head or the hands or any vulnerable part of the body.
In the legs.
Right, or the legs. Yeah, but I did think it was cool though, just to watch the bullets kind of fall to the ground. I'm like, I don't know how that happened, but pretty cool that they can do it.
Yeah.
But in any event, thank you for that, Grandmaster. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to chat with Merv here about Wakanda Forever. Like I said, there's a lot going on in this film. There's a lot that Ryan Coogler had to do, obviously, from a commercial standpoint, to meet genre expectations, to tell his incredibly emotional, vivid story, and do it in a way that sort of represents his kind of humanist, grounded style of storytelling. I just want to know from you, do you think he was successful overall? Did this movie meet your expectations? Do you think it's even comparable or close to the first movie? Where do you shake out? Tell me some of the things about the movie that you liked and disliked.
First off, I think he nailed it as far as getting his vision. You know, he probably had a vision for this that was emotional, and if that was it, then he nailed that aspect of it. I do think it's a little, like, for me at least, it was a little bit weighted to where, like, the emotional scenes and the character development for like at least quite a few of these side characters outweighed like the superhero stuff. You know what I mean? Like for me at least, and that's a rare thing because normally I'm all about the action. You know what I mean? But I really felt connected to like the emotional story arc of Shuri, and especially the Queen in the beginning. I thought she was great. I thought she shone in a moment in the film where like you're not sure if Wakanda is shaken due to the king's death, and she sets like the world straight. And I think that was the point of the United Nations scene or whatever that was like Wakanda isn't a pushover all of a sudden just because their king died. Like they're going to be fine, you know. And she provided that stability during the transitional period between their dead king and their next king, whoever that may be, you know. But I really liked the emotional center of this film more than the superhero stuff. I still enjoyed it, but I do think it just like some of that stuff just felt like there wasn't a whole lot to take away other than like surface value stuff. Whereas the emotional side felt way deeper than I expected. You kind of hope coming in, but I didn't expect it to resonate as well with especially certain characters like Shuri, who, like I said, I liked as a sidekick, you know, but I never thought that I would like her as the main character, especially becoming a Black Panther. I didn't think that would be something I enjoyed, but the moment she drops down into M'Baku's lair, I was.
Did you not get chills?
I was pumped.
Chill?
Yeah, I was super pumped, and I did not expect that whatsoever. So kudos to them for flipping me on that, because I came into the movie like, it's going to be kind of lame, but I'm hoping the rest of the stuff is going to be well worth it. And by the end of it, I was a big Shuri fan. I might actually like this more than the first. I'd have to rewatch the first one, but the first one to me has always been kind of like a middle ground Marvel film for me. Like it's never been like one of my top 5 or top 10 Marvel films, and I'm probably an outlier in that regard. But it just always felt kind of typical, if that makes sense. Stylistically, it was very unique in the culture that it shows and things like that. I love that aspect of it, but from a storyline perspective, it just always felt kind of typical. And this one feels different, very different to me. But I'd have to rewatch both to really give you an idea of where I truly think that this one sits in regards to that one, because I think this one properly builds on the first film quite a bit. I did rewatch a little bit of it I forgot how much of the beginning of the first Black Panther is really about his father and the legacy of his, like, T'Challa's father handing that mantle down, and him like trying to live up to his father and dealing with his father's mistakes. This series has kind of become a very generational series without me even realizing it. Like the original king who gets blown up in Civil War, spoiler, his mistakes lead to the Black Panther storyline, and then T'Challa's death leads to this storyline. The mantle was passed so many times already that it's really just about the line of Black Panthers more so than one at this point. If they decide to focus on one particular character in the future, that's fine. But I'm really starting to appreciate that a lot more after this film. Let's see, other things I really liked. That bridge fight, the first fight between Okoye and Atuma and all the other people, that was really the highlight for me, was Okoye versus Atuma. Even though we knew nothing about Atuma, he was just an intimidating character and a standout amongst the, same looking Talakans. So I just loved seeing Okoye fight with a spear, which, jumping ahead to the end, whenever she's all suited up, I hated it. I was like, give me Okoye with a spear. I don't want to see her, like in this full suit of armor flying around, I didn't hate the colorization or the style choice of it. I just hated that I wanted to see Okoye as Okoye that I loved. So,
Yeah.
let's see. I really enjoyed Namor and Shuri's relationship whenever he captures her or she goes with him, whatever you want to call that. A lot of their dialogue just felt good, like it felt. I honestly wasn't sure if they were going to try to go into some kind of a romantic situation or what the deal was there, because they really seemed to hit it off on like a personal level. Like they understood where each other comes from, but the stubbornness of Namor got in the way, and obviously we saw the end result of that. Speaking of which, there's I didn't really understand how, like, Namor's obsession with the character of Riri or Ironheart. She already built the thing. There's blueprints to it. The government has already had their hands on it.
Assassinating her. And I think a lot of fans caught on to maybe Namor not having the strongest motivations, but I think you can divide it into two categories. His motivation and desires were credible. His tactics for executing on them were not as strong as they possibly could be. It really felt like a lot of plot armor or just plot machinations to get Riri involved in this story in some meaningful way.
And I did really enjoy the first encounter with Riri, but after that, she's really blended into the background for me. Like I can't remember a single really memorable scene from her for the second half of the film. Yeah. But I really like that first encounter where they're running from the cops, and even just the dialogue in her dorm room or whatever was fun. It was a fun change of scene. But yeah, the
as the young genius savant. She takes over for Shuri from that first movie, and kind of takes that. Did you find that to be redundant or repetitive, or do you think that this is a credible enough character that you're going to watch the Disney Plus show?
I'll probably watch the Disney Plus show, but I'm not really. This movie didn't make me like super invested in the character, to put it that way. But then again, like the same thing, I wasn't super invested in seeing a movie that focused on Shuri either. So they can always change my mind once it starts. You know what I mean? All I got to do is watch it. So I have the easy part of that situation.
Indeed.
I do think, while we're on Ironheart's character, I was really hoping to get like nostalgia vibes for Tony Stark, for lack of a better word. Like not necessarily Tony Stark, but like the Iron Man suit. And a lot of that's just like the sound effects and the way it moves, and just that, everyone knows his hand blaster sound when you hear it, and like the way it walks around and moves, and just the sound.
Yeah.
And I really wanted that, and I don't. If it was in there, it got lost in the shuffle for me, because I never really felt like, ooh, that's potentially the next Iron Man or an Iron Man, because I know there's several people with Iron Man suits now, but I really wish that kind of, I don't know, nostalgia is probably not the right word, but I wanted it to sound like Iron Man.
Yeah, you want a feeling of sort of Iron Man, but without Tony Stark. I kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that Shuri's suit had incorporated her like hand blasters or whatever she uses all the time.
Yeah.
That was a really nice touch, because I was like, this is, she's been fighting like this for the last several movies. Of course she wants, to fight like that. And on that note, I really enjoyed how much intelligence was in like the last fight sequence, and how much strategy was involved, and in just the different tactics that the Wakandans use. I think that speaks more to Shuri's leadership and intelligence than anything else. It's like she's telling things to, telling people to do this and, do that. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, even if I'm on the same page as Taylor. Like, it was kind of lackluster action, especially for Marvel. It was good, but it wasn't great. But I really did enjoy the strategy behind it. Like, that made a lot of sense and really allowed her to shine, I think. Unlike you guys, I did actually have some issues with the darkness in a few scenes.
Oh.
I don't know if it was like, I don't know if there was copies or if it was on theater.
Did you see a normal screening? Was it 3D IMAX? Okay.
Yeah, it was just a normal theater screening. It's the one I've been going to for the last couple of years. But so I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like very, very bad, but it was very close to Game of Thrones, the
wow.
winter
House
scene
of
for me.
Dragon.
It was only like once or twice. It was the one time was the first time the sirens showed up, which I love that touch as well. I thought that was great, and they were creepy. That first sequence with the ship and they're attacking it was like genuinely a little bit creepy because of the siren song and the way people were just like hypnotized walking off, and then the diver's like disappearing randomly. I love that. But that was one of the scenes where it was like some of these shots are just way too dark. I can't. I barely saw the heads bobbing out of the water. But that might have been just a technical thing.
Special edition.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree with Ross and Val as well. They just felt like hamstrung in more than anything else. In like you said, I'm sure it'll lead to something. Whether it's the Thunderbolts movie or something down the line. But it really just felt like it was like we're focusing on this story over here, and then there's these two characters, and what are they up to? There was probably too much there that I didn't need to hear or didn't really care about.
Right.
And then the lack of development for Atuma and Namora was, it didn't really matter, but it made like those. It detracted from the final battle because they both get defeated in like heroic moments for Okoye and Ironheart. I think that's who defeated those characters in combat, but it didn't really register because we didn't have that much development between
really
so
as people. I feel like they did a little work with Namora when she's talking to Namor towards the end of the movie and trying to explain to her the current political the political relationship between Wakanda and Talokan. But I will say that you're right. There's a lack of development on Atuma and Namora, who are big characters in the comic books. But it only made me excited to have those characters get developed a little further down the line.
Yeah, I think that conversation that you mentioned was planting seeds of a potential uprising or whatever, or maybe they're growing a little bit unhappy with the way that Namor's leading their people now. Not being as bloodthirsty and as just powerful and strong as they probably expected.
Having a little bit of love. He's not the child without love anymore.
Yeah. And they probably didn't want a peaceful resolution to this, and I think it's going to provide conflict in the future, and I'm curious to see where it goes. And I just love the expansion of this universe. The MCU is getting so big, and then all of a sudden here's this underwater world, and we know everything we need to know about them already, and that was fantastically done.
Indeed.
But yeah, overall, really good movie. I love the emotional bits more than the action bits, and I think that'll only grow the more I rewatch it.
Indeed. And I don't think Ryan Coogler ever gets put up on anybody's list of greatest action sequence directors. A lot of people had problems with the action in the first film. Not that it was bad, but that they didn't feel like it was Russo brother level, action directing. But that being said, I got to put you on the spot here. Ryan Coogler, Secret Wars.
Is he the director of Secret Wars?
Would you want to see that?
Yeah, I'd be fine with anything Ryan Coogler touches. I think it's all good. I'm unfamiliar outside of general premise with the Secret Wars, so I'm not sure how much like action is the focus of it. It's a kind of, maybe it's in the name, I don't know, but that would be the only question mark is like if there's a lot of action and this is our sample size, like maybe it's not the best choice.
Yeah. I think he'll need some stronger second units. Probably need to talk to the Russo brothers about whoever they work with for stunt coordination. But in terms of bringing an emotional core and heart to a Secret Wars story,
absolutely,
definitely put Ryan Coogler on the short list to take that movie on. We've already got our Kang Dynasty director in Dustin Daniel Cretton, and I think he's strong in both areas. But thank you so much for those notes and your deep dive analysis, Merv. Now we're going to move to the man of the hour. We're going to move to the master of ceremonies. We're going to move to the man in the chair to get his thoughts on Wakanda Forever. We got a lot going on in this movie, Grandmaster. So I really want you to think about it. I mean, we've got commercial setup. We've got lots of characters in this movie. We've got tons of story threads that are being introduced and then resolved or not resolved in the movie. Where do you land? Give us your deep dive analysis of Wakanda Forever.
No, let's. Yeah, I will just run through the characters real quick and the actors first. Shuri is, of course, the main character of this movie, played by Letitia Wright. I thought she brought her best performance yet into this movie. She was amazing. The emotional depth she portrayed, the emotional disconnect she had to portray, and she really did an excellent job. Loved her. Even better, her mom, Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett. My God, she was amazing. Every scene she was in, it was fire. That scene where she stripped Okoye of her rank, that broke my heart, man. That was so emotional and so, yeah, heartbreaking for Okoye, but I also felt it for her. I mean, she lost indeed her whole family at that moment, and yeah. I must say, I thought her heroic action by saving Riri at the end, at her end, yeah, it was a little bit far-fetched. I mean, I didn't know she was an Olympic swimmer, but hey, well done. The Namor, I don't know how to say it. I will say just Namor, because otherwise I offend Taylor, and I don't want to do that. Tenoqueta, excellent. The acting overall was great, but those three really stood out for me and really brought their A game, and I loved it, and I cannot wait to see more of Namor. And I hope we will get him very, very soon back in the MCU.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was awesome. Dominic Thorne, Riri Williams. I can't say she acted badly, but maybe it's just me, but I couldn't care less for this character at this moment in this movie. And it doesn't mean that I don't like her as an actress, or I'm not gonna watch her show, or I'd hate the character of Ironheart from the comics, because I'm not a comic book reader. I don't give a rat's bottom about.
Let's drill down into that, though. Do you think that you didn't connect with the character because you didn't get enough backstory, or
Yeah.
is it the choices that Dominique Thorne made as an
No,
actor?
no. It was. I think it was what was given her. I think the actress did a fine job with what she has done, with what she was given. I mean, there's a genius. They pick it up. They have like oh, he has a genius. Now we have the genius. Genius almost dies. Genius helps out for the final battle. And then genius disappears again. There was not much to it. It was just like it was said before, MacGuffin that had to be thrown around, and I could have done without that storyline. However, one of the major things in this movie that I thought that was really awesome, a few times I just applauded in the cinema. I had goosebumps very few times. There were a lot of callbacks by previous lines about T'Challa or from T'Challa in this movie. And even there was a quote from Chadwick Boseman he made at the SAG Awards in a speech. To be young, gifted, and black. That was actually from Chadwick Boseman's real life. And they put that into this movie. When I heard it, it really gave me goosebumps. And that's what I meant before when I said Chadwick Boseman was present throughout this movie. He was constantly there, off screen, on screen. I mean, we can talk about the ending all you want, but he was there as well. He was there in the beginning. When the moment they showed the Marvel logo instead of the opening fanfare, it was silence. And only what they also did with the first Black Panther, they changed that movie. If people don't know that, on Disney Plus, originally the Marvel logo was a normal one, basically what they used at that time. They changed that on Disney Plus to put Chadwick Boseman into everything in purple. Well, they did that in this movie as well, but now it was completely silent, and that silence said it all. The movie was very emotional, but never to a point where it overpowered what the movie story was, if you know what I mean. It was there, but it was never about it. And I think they balanced that excellently. Really well done. Yeah. Like I say, the story, the movie they gave us was the story, the movie they should have given us, more of the movie they could have given us. There was no room for the character of T'Challa in this movie, and they did that on purpose. I mean, he died at the end. They never let open like he's away, or or they have a normal story, and then you say, okay, T'Challa could have been in this story. No, he couldn't have been in the story, because this was about his death, his grief, the way Wakanda and the rest of the world handled that grief. And in a way, it also was about how the MCU handles his loss. That was very well done. And the way they did, and what I absolutely loved, is that they gave Michael B. Jordan a comeback in this movie.
Killmonger.
Yeah, and they did, and I know why they did it. I mean, of course, it was about Shuri's mindset at the moment. She takes the synthesized herb, and then she meets Killmonger, which is her family, of course, but it's not the one she expects them to be, but it's her mindset that calls him.
Right.
But of course, they had to give Michael B. Jordan a moment in this movie to remember Chadwick Boseman as well, and I absolutely loved it. And the fact that he said T'Challa was too noble, and he actually spoke with respect about T'Challa. That was the respect they found in the moment of his death, overlooking Wakanda. I thought that was very well done. It was very beautiful, and I absolutely loved that was in the movie. So yeah, my personal highlight of this whole movie was Lord M'Baku. He stole the show, man. He is funny. He is serious. And he is king. And
Yeah. He can take a punch.
yeah, and he can give a punch. He can pack a punch as well. He was my personal favorite in the first one, and he was so again in this one. And the scene after Queen Ramonda dies and he talks to Shuri, I think that was. I agree with. I think it was Taylor who said it, that the writing was not so great at certain moments. I agree, but that scene was very good, very well written. And yeah, let's talk about it. Funeral, the funeral of T'Challa. Yeah, I thought it was visually stunning, and I have expected the Rihanna song to play while his coffin went up in the air, but yeah, really loved it. That you saw an overview of the city, and all the rooftops were covered with people dressed in white, and yeah. I also must commend Marvel for balancing humor, action, and seriousness, and grief, and everything, all emotions in this movie, because never at any moment I thought, oh, this joke shouldn't be here. I never thought, oh, can you stop with the crying? Or no, it was excellently done. I mean, I can only say good things about this movie, except for the fact that indeed Val, Ross, and Riri Williams were filled a bit shoehorned in, and yeah, that's a criticism we all share, and I think that's valid. I didn't mind the things. I mean, and again, I didn't mind Riri Williams. I didn't mind Val. I didn't mind Ross. But if they were not in the movie, I would have been fine too.
Right. I tend to agree with you. I personally was okay with Ross. I'm a Martin Friedman fan. I think he always does a good job. But I do think Julia Louis-Dreyfus, in terms of expanding out from a cameo, of just basic cameos where she has one or two badass lines to say at the end of an episode, to turning that now into something of a character, I still think she's finding her footing with Val. And I'm she's such a talented actress that I'm willing to wait and be
Yeah.
patient with her to
Well,
really
you could
discover the
tell
character.
you could tell she's still finding indeed her the right vibe for this character.
Right.
I
Right.
actually liked her a lot more in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Widow in the short scene we have seen than I did in this movie. I thought she was a little bit too, may I say, neurotic,
Yeah, there's a she
especially
hasn't
for
found
her
the lethal
job.
side. Yeah, she hasn't found the lethal side of Val.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I liked the sarcastic part of her because I'm also a little bit sarcastic sometimes, as you may have noticed in the in the last few years. But yeah, it just felt a little bit shoehorned in. And of all those three characters, Ross felt the most natural to me. And but I did expect him to wake up, walk into his kitchen, and find 12 doors there. But that's another story.
Fair enough. The deep cut for those of you out there in the audience. But yes, please continue, Grandmaster. Was there
Well,
any?
no, I'm done.
Wow. Okay. Well, then I've got a couple of questions for you.
Okay, shoot.
Everybody's been talking about mutants. That's just been a big deal. You can't get to the X-Men fast enough in the MCU. And everyone's kind of like, oh, well, we got an introduction to mutants in Miss Marvel, I think it was. And unfortunately, I have to say, I still haven't made it through that entire series. It's been a struggle. I've stopped midway, but I am going to catch up with the remaining episodes. But I was spoiled, and rightfully so, after all these months, that they introduced mutants there. To me, it feels like the real introduction of mutants comes with Wakanda Forever. How do you feel about the way they handled the sort of indigenous peoples, the Mesoamerican peoples, sort of ingesting the irradiated plant life around the vibranium mine there, and then mutating into well, becoming fabulous mutations? What was your feeling about that? How do you think they handled it? Does this feel like a true introduction to mutants?
No, not really. Not to me, at least. But I am a person who is totally fine with mutants coming on later in the MCU. So I did pick up on Namor saying he's a mutant. And of course, you have the scene where they take the plant and then they indeed mutate into basically walking fishes. Uh, yeah. Uh, no, I don't have any strong feeling
So for
either
you,
way.
you're still waiting. You're still waiting for a proper
Yeah,
mutant introduction.
yeah.
Is-
No, well, proper mutant introduction. I'm not waiting for that proper mutant introduction. It will be there at some point, and we will get X-Men. And I had a little bit of hope they were introduced Storm in this movie. But they didn't, and I'm totally fine with it. I'm not in any hurry to get to the mutants. It's like what I said a year ago. They will drop hints of mutants here and there in the coming few years, and that's exactly what they're doing, and it's fine.
Okay. Okay. Well said. Well said. Had to put you on the spot there, Grandmaster. Everybody gets an on the spot question at the end of their analysis. And now we are at the part of the program where we are going to attempt to give Wakanda Forever a rating. It's been 30 films since the MCU started. We have scaled the heights with incredible films like Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Endgame. I'm not going to ask anyone to rank this film, but I am going to ask you to give it a grade between 1 and 10 to see where this falls. I'm very, very curious to see what the panel thinks of the film from that point of view. I'm going to start with Merv. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, 1 to 10. What is your grade for this film?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 overall. The emotional parts were 10 out of 10, but the rest was a little bit mediocre. But 8 out of 10. Really good.
A strong entry in the superhero genre. Are you feeling fatigue at this point? Do you think the formula is losing steam? Are you losing interest? Just overall in the genre. I'm not even talking about the MCU.
For me personally, no, but I will say that I've already gone through my fatigue phase. After Endgame, I took like a year off of pretty much everything superhero in general. So when I came back with an appetite for it, and which was only like a year ago at this point. So if you're feeling fatigued, take a break and then come back.
Yeah.
It'll do you wonders. You'll find all these like tedious, hard to sit through shows far more enjoyable if you just step away and let your appetite for this kind of stuff like grow again.
Right. And I couldn't agree with you more, Merv. You got to treat it like a revolving door. You come and you go. You don't have to watch every single thing that comes out the minute it comes out so that you can spend the next year and a half nitpicking it to death.
Right.
So I'm right there with you. But our first grade is an 8 out of 10. Taylor, the fan without fear. What is your grade for Wakanda Forever? Scale of 1 to 10.
Before I give you my grade, let me do a couple of really quick follow-ups.
Sure.
One of the problems that the whole idea of Wakanda in the MCU has is vibranium. It's so much of a crutch for the writers. It does whatever they needed to do at any given time in the script. It's really a like you mentioned, the Deus Ex Machina thing. All right, and I really wish they would define it exactly what it does and what it doesn't do. The other thing is that they kept talking in this movie about the other countries of the world are coming for Wakanda. Well, how? Because they've basically set up Wakanda to be Star Trek, and the rest of the world might as well be cavemen.
Yeah, they've got to be at least a century ahead of the rest of the human race.
Right, exactly. They might, as I said, the rest of us might as well be cavemen. And not only are we not as advanced as them, they're portraying us as like freaking morons. The rest of the world are just idiots.
No, just the French.
And,
just the
Wakanda
French
can do whatever they want. Well, no, not just the French, the others as well. Because we all know the French. but and Wakanda can do anything and everything, which it always made me laugh. The Black Panther is the protector of Wakanda, the country that needs absolutely no protection because it has a force field around its entire country. So I wish they had kind of toned it down a little bit. I don't mind them being the most advanced country in the world, but they didn't have to make them like Star Trek. I would have liked to have seen like almost like a futuristic Star Wars steampunk type view of their technology as opposed to this, make stuff appear out of thin air practically. And now, like Okoye can go into America and free a guy who's been accused of espionage and just break him out of prison. And, oh, well, we can do that because we're freaking Wakanda. And at the end of the movie, and we'll take him back to Wakanda because we like him and he did something nice for us. I think that's just pushing it a little bit too far at this point. And again, that's a small nitpick. I am glad that Shuri decided not to be queen and let M'Baku become king. Yeah. Otherwise, they might as well just change the name of Wakanda to Themyscira at this point because there's like no men in the country at all besides M'Baku now. All right, I mean, seriously.
Well, how was everybody going to feel about having to worship Hunaman? The ape god instead of the Panther cult.
Glory to
I can't wait to see M'Baku's first UN speech. But I digress. My score, 9 out of 10. All right, excellent movie. A 9 out of 10, which puts it right there in the middle of the MCU for me. Excellent, and I really want to see more Namor, and I really want to see more of. I want to, I know that the Val stuff is going to lead into Thunderbolts, which I think is going to be a great movie too. So I'm all in. And no, if you want to ask me about fatigue, no, none. can't wait. I wish Quantumania was opening next. I wish Quantumania was opening next weekend because can't wait.
Yeah, the only problem we have is like waiting for these films to come out. But Merv, you had a quick follow up, and thank you for the score, Taylor. 9 out of 10. We are keeping track here, but Merv, you had a quick follow up.
Yeah, I do think that begs the question. Just a little confused on the mantle of Black Panther. Is M'Baku now the Black Panther because he's presumably going to be king? And if he is he actually going to be a Black Panther or like a man ape, like his character is based off of? You know, is he going to have an ape-like costume the next time we see him, or is he officially a Black Panther, or is Shuri still going to be the Black? There's a lot of questions at the end of this that don't have time to get resolved. So in the future, I'm sure they will.
Indeed, indeed. All right, we've got an 8 out of 10. We got a 9 out of 10. Grandmaster, it is up to you. What do you give Wakanda Forever? And this is for posterity. When this goes out on the air, you'll never be able to take it back.
Okay. First, there was a moment I laughed uncontrollably during the movie, at which point it was not because of a joke made in the movie, but a joke made by my wife sitting next to me in the theater. That was the moment Shuri used her engine blast and hurt Namor's back. She's Asian, and her reaction was, "Hey, barbecue fish." But anyway, yeah, I laughed really hard when she said that. My wife can be very funny. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10. I'm gonna place this movie. And I will post my ranking on the board, sakar.freeforms.net, tomorrow after we have put out our review. But I put this movie in my top 10. It's not my best movie of Phase 4. I think it edges out almost every movie except for Shang-Chi, and personally favorite of mine, Eternals, but that's my number one, so that's just personal. But it is a top 10 movie for me, top 10 project in the MCU for me. And there are now 40 projects in the MCU. Next week there will be 41, by the way. But 8 out of 10 in my top 10. I think that's fair.
Indeed. Do you think the film has rewatch value? Are you
absolutely
theater?
I think this movie has a lot of rewatch value, but I will see that in a few weeks again.
Indeed. I have a bonus round question for the panel. I'm going to go around really quickly. This is the second installment in the franchise. We know that we can get up to part 4 with these franchises, as Thor has set the precedent for that now. Starting with you, Taylor, where do we go from here with the Black Panther? What do you want to see? Where do you think it could go?
That's a tough one, because going into this, I really thought that after this movie, they were going to lessen the Black Panther's role in the MCU. I didn't think he or she would never show up again. I thought they would still show up again at some point, but I thought they would just become a less of a prevalent character in the franchise. And I thought that Namor was the perfect replacement. Namor was going to become more of a central character going forward. After seeing this movie, I'm not so sure about that. And I think Merv might have mentioned it. Merv did mention it. Maybe it's not so much going forward with the Black Panther as going forward with the Wakanda saga.
Right.
And maybe it's Man-Ape next. We know we're going to see more Dora Milaje. Everyone loves the Dora Milaje, and I like them too, though I think that they may be getting a little oversaturated with the Dora Milaje at this point. I like them, but we know we're going to see more of them. So, they could just go straight another Black Panther sequel and another Black Panther sequel, but I think they're going to do it a little bit more of a Wakanda
anthology,
Wakanda Forever sequel, if you know what I mean.
The world of Wakanda sort of situation.
Yeah,
because it's a compelling world, and I honestly wouldn't mind seeing more stories, more TV shows, more movies set in this world, because the vision of Afrofuturism, the vision of Latinx futurism, it's compelling. It's compelling to see Black and Brown communities portrayed this way in this genre. So, thanks for your notes on that, Taylor. Merv, same question. Where do we go from here? Do you want to see more of the Black Panther without T'Challa? Do you think we should just spin off into Namor's world? What's the future as you see it?
I'm very happy to see more of Wakanda in the future. Um, like post, this movie, and maybe they have a run in with the Thunderbolts or something. The world seems interested in Wakanda, so it wouldn't surprise me to see young T'Challa used as a plot device. Maybe people find out that he exists and they're going to try to use him to whatever. I can't even imagine. Or, I really think Namor's storyline ended on a bit of a cliff. I do think that, maybe it's just wishful thinking, but they were planting seeds of potential. His throne isn't that secure after the events of this movie.
Yeah.
So it would be very interesting if, that happened. And, I don't know if a second Wakanda or a third Wakanda movie, but a second one featuring Namor would necessarily be a good idea. I think that would be better for its own thing or something else. But anything that gives me more M'Baku, more Okoye, and at this point more Shuri, like I'm very happy to watch. So
Yeah.
they could go in a million different directions. There will always be a world power, so people want that power.
Indeed. And yeah, the transformation that Letitia Wright makes from young ingenue, precocious savant to a grief-stricken monarch in this film is just incredible. She's a fantastic actress. I wouldn't mind her hanging around for a little bit more Black Panther action. Last but not least, we certainly have the Grandmaster. What do we do now? Where do we go from here with the franchise? What would you want to see? What don't you want to see?
Well, first of all, I think we already know that because what isn't there a rumored Wakanda series in development at Disney Plus? It's not been officially announced, but basically that has been confirmed by the trades. That the
Development. We don't have nice. It's supposedly in development, but we don't have one of those nice like little logo pages on.
Yeah, exactly. But so we get the series on Disney Plus, Wakanda centered. For the movies, I think they will make a sequel at some point. And I think they already have made a kind of setup in the speech that Namor had with Namora about the political side of things, where the world is going for Wakanda, because Wakanda has been going for the world. I mean, what Taylor addressed, they take a CIA prisoner away from the United States of America. Well, I don't know a lot about the United States of America. I will not presume to know a lot about that country, but I do know that will not sit easy with them. So I'm for sure there's some sort of repercussions coming. So I think they already gave us enough setup. I do hope that Shuri stays the Black Panther. I've like stated before by I think Merv, the mantle has been changed a few times, so let it stay with Shuri for a while, and then let M'Baku be the king, and Shuri his most trusted general, whatever he wants to call him, make of her. Overall, that sequel will come at a certain moment. I think Namor will get a movie at a certain moment as well, or something like that, because his character and his realm is too interesting to just let sit there and be a secondary thing. I think people have been shouting for the coming of Namor into the MCU for a decade now. Yeah. I mean, it has been teased in Iron Man 2 already, so it was due. And I think now that he's here, they will use him, and they will use him plenty. So, yeah, we get both Wakanda and Talokan in the future.
Yeah. All right, you heard it here first. The future. Well, I was surprised to find that Marvel avoided saying this at the end of the movie like they normally do, but I think if you left it to the panel, the Black Panther will return. And I think we can say that with some confidence. So, that being said, you heard it here. Great film. We've given it 8s, 9s out of 10 in terms of the grades. This is one of the stronger entries in the MCU. And if you had doubts about seeing it, or if you're burned out about the genre and you don't know what to pick right now, Wakanda Forever is a strong choice. You have the champion's recommendation backing that. That being said, parting is always such sweet sorrow, but that is going to bring our review of Wakanda Forever to a close in this particular episode to a close. I do want to encourage you to join the conversation here in the comments in the video on YouTube. You can also jump into the fray on social media. We do all that stuff at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also join us in the discussion on our community at sakar.freeforums.net. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you are safe. We hope you're happy. And we hope you're enjoying what you love. Take care.